Go.
Hello, children. I want to tell you a story. It happened long ago and far away. And children, this story is true. Now, to tell you this story, I have been practicing drawing a very special picture. I'm going to draw it for you now. So pay very close attention. I want you to see if you are able to guess what this is. Can you, children? Okay, talk among yourselves. See if you can come up with an idea. No? Let me give you a little more help. How about I do this? Does this help? I see I might have to tell you. You see, this is obviously the great big hairy legs of the giant Goliath. Now, Goliath was a bad, bad man. He didn't love God and he didn't love the people of God. He was terrible. I want you to get some idea of how he would have dressed and the weapons he would have carried. So I'm going to ask my friend to come in and see if he can't show you a little bit of Goliath's costume. Now, children, we're working in a little bit of a tight space here, so you can see we can hardly get his weapon in here. And the truth is, my friend would need to be standing on a really high stool if he was going to be a proper Goliath and to be tall enough. As tall as he is, he's not tall enough to be Goliath. Goliath was around 9-10 feet tall. Some people say taller. Now, Goliath laughed at the people of God. Let me hear a laugh. No. See, Goliath was mean and fierce and had a nasty laugh. Let's hear it. Oh my goodness. This is the only person I could find to help me, children. We are in so much trouble. We're going to try one more time. I have confidence this will work. Yep, that's Goliath. Sounded just like that. He was scary. And you felt his laugh deep down in your soul. And it was terrifying. It was frightening. And then there was this big, big spear. Goliath, could I hold your spear long enough for you to grab the shield there? Thank you, Goliath. He really does look scary, children. Now, he would have also carried this big, big shield. And he had this big spear. And he was tall. And he was mean. And he... Oh, I'm awfully close to Goliath, children. Now, Goliath was not a nice man. Just so you can kind of keep it in your mind how he acted, how he looked. I'm going to ask him one more time to give us that really strong Goliath laugh. Oh my goodness. Yes, that's it. All right, children, while my friend leaves, I want all of you to clap for him. Good job. He was a wonderful Goliath. Great job. Thank you for clapping for my friend, children. Now, as you can see, Goliath was big and he was scary and he wasn't nice. But there are other people in this story. So I want you to see them. You see, in this story, there is a group of men who love God and a group of men who don't love God. Now, the group of men that love God are led by a king. The problem is he has forgotten to trust God. God would help him if you would just ask. But children, he's not thinking like he ought to be thinking. And so finally, what happens is a battle is coming. And the good guys are going to line up against the bad guys. And it's going to be bad. And what's going to happen is we're going to have guys on one side who love God and guys on the other side who don't love God. Now, this is going to be a little bit scary. So, to give you just a minute to recover from seeing Goliath, before we get to this part of the story, we are going to take just a minute. Let me introduce to you the good guys. I want to tell you a little bit more about them. Before they came to this place, certain things happened. You see, like I said, in this story, there is a king. And the king has a big problem. Goliath is his big problem. And he does not want to fight Goliath. He's the king. He's got a lot to lose. And he doesn't want to lose it. So he thinks, I've got to get my men to fight Goliath. Nobody really wants this job. So the king is clever. He stands in front of all of the men. They're gathered there with their swords and their spears, their bows and their arrows. And he says, all right, here's what we're going to do. Somebody has to go out and fight Goliath. He says he will face our champion. So we need a champion. It's one of you guys. Yeah. So I want to make this nice for you. So here's what I'm going to do. Whoever says they'll be our champion and go out and fight Goliath, well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to share my treasure with them. I will give them gold. Yeah, lots of gold. And I'll give them silver. And then you can, of course, buy fine clothes. I'm going to make it where you never have to pay taxes again. So you are going to have so much wealth. Okay? Well, so his men, it's a lot of treasure. They looked at the treasure and, nice. They thought about not paying taxes. Then they thought about Goliath. He's really big. And he just had that terrible, terrible laugh. And did you see the size of that man's arms? And they said, no, thank you, king. We don't want your money. We like being poor. Yeah. Well, that didn't work. So now the king, not wanting to still fight Goliath himself, thinks, I must come up with another plan. And then he thought of his beautiful daughter. His daughter was renowned in the kingdom for her beauty. So he said to the men, here's your opportunity. I'm going to let you marry my beautiful daughter. Yeah, that's a deal. I'm going to let you marry her. All you got to do is fight Goliath, and the princess will be your wife. You'll live here in the palace with me. You'll be surrounded by wealth and privilege. This is going to be great. Well, it did sound like a pretty good deal. Wow, she's really pretty, the guys thought. And they thought about how beautiful she was. And they thought about Goliath and how he was taller than any man they'd ever seen before in their entire lives. And they said, we like ugly women, yeah! And they decided they wanted no part of the king's plan. Well, now the king was really stuck. What was he going to do? Goliath's out there laughing at the people of God, making fun of them. Ha, ha, ha! Actually, I can't make enough of a roaring sound. I think I'll use this. Ha, 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 ha! You're losers! You're all losers! And you're gonna be my slaves! Ha, 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 ha! Day in, day out, they listened to that. They were so afraid. Their hearts were full of fear. They didn't know what to do. They were absolutely terrified. They just couldn't imagine how this was going to work out. Don't worry, children. On the darkest of days, when you think there is no hope, God cannot make a way, God has already made a way. And God has a way right now to rescue his people. It's just not quite the rescue they imagine. Because far, far away, there's a little boy. He doesn't look so tough. And he comes to the palace and he offers to fight Goliath. He did one thing that none of the other men did. You see, the other men, they looked at Goliath and their fear got bigger and bigger and bigger. But David, that's his name, he looked at God and his fear went away. Now, children, this is about to be amazing. So here we have, the battle is all set up. We have the two sides. Now, on this side, we have the people of God. The problem is, they have forgotten. They have forgotten who they serve. They have forgotten that there's nothing that God can't do, that there's no problem he can't solve. And there's lots of these guys. They've got their spears and they've got their swords. And I mean, there's a big, big army of these guys. And They're all lined up over here. All these guys. And in the back is the king. Because the king does not want to fight. And maybe that's the saddest bit of all. Here he is, supposed to be their leader, and he doesn't want to fight. So he's standing at the back. He's all afraid. Now over here, we've got the bad guys. Oh, and there's a lot of bad guys. So many bad guys. Lots and lots of bad guys. And they've got their spears and they've got their swords and they're all lined up to fight and everybody's ready and these guys are shouting at these guys but these guys are a little more confident because you see at the front of their army is this great, big, strong man, this giant called Goliath. And he is so big. He's got a great big helmet on. You saw what it might have looked like earlier. Oh yeah, it's really scary. I mean, this guy sounds scary. He looks scary. He's bigger than anybody's ever seen. And then we got these little guys. It's not looking good. And Goliath, he goes down into the valley to fight the good guys' champion. And the good guys don't have much confidence in David. I mean, you know, he's not the big, strong, muscular army type that they were expecting. And they're figuring, well, this is not going to go good for us. They're just figuring that, yeah, we're going to be slaves. That's how it's going to go. They don't expect David to win. They have no confidence in his ability to fight. They have no belief that he'll be able to rescue them. The children, they have forgotten that it is not David's job to rescue them. It is God's job. Don't worry, David hasn't forgotten. So here we have David, and he's not very big. He's shorter than a normal fighting guy. He doesn't wear armor. He doesn't carry a spear. He's a shepherd, got that little thing on his head, you know, shepherds wear. Then we've got Goliath, and here he is. And he's looking bigger than ever and meaner than ever. And, oh, he is frightening looking. Big old spear. You know, this does not look like someone you want to cross. And yet, it is David's job to fight him. So here's Goliath, and here's David, and you see the problem. And when Goliath sees David, he says, that is your champion? Oh, it doesn't look good. Don't worry, children, because you see, God is about to do something awesome. So David, he takes that little sling in his hand. Would have looked something like this. He's got some little rocks in his pocket, and he puts one stone in there, and he's got it set just right. I mean, he's fought a bear with this, and he's fought a lion with this, and he won. But nobody's much remembering that right now. And then he pulls it round and round and round and round and round his head, and he lets it go. And that stone flies through the air, and then it hits Goliath right in the center of the head, and Goliath goes down. He's out. He's done. He's finished. And the crowd goes crazy. Yay! Come on, children, let's hear ya. Woo! Oh, they can't believe it. They won. They can't believe it. Now, children, who is the hero of this story? No, children, it's not David. Children, the hero of this story is God, because God used David, but it was God that gave the victory. It wasn't David's big muscles that won the day. It was God. Now, children, today you heard a story about light and darkness. You heard a story about bad men, terrible men, men who didn't love God, men who liked hurting other people, men who didn't care how they won as long as they won. Very selfish men. And then you heard about someone who had his eyes on God. someone whose heart was full of hope, someone who had no fear, and his name was David. Now, children, we don't want to be like this. We don't want to live in the dark and be afraid and have no hope, be selfish. We don't want to be that. We want to live in the light. We want to have no fear. We want to know that our days are sorted by God, that God's got it. We want to remember that. Children, you and I cannot make ourselves live in the light. We can say we want to, but we can't make it happen. And the reason we can't make it happen is we all have the same problem, and that's what puts us in the dark. You see, we say bad things, we do bad things. It's the way we're born, and that's what keeps us separated from God, and we can't fix it. But children, the good news is, and it is the best news, is that God saw we could not help ourselves, and so God sent Jesus to die on the cross for us, to take our punishment. But don't worry, children. He rose from the dead. And because he rose from the dead, we can live in the light. We can have hope. We can have love. We don't have to be afraid. All we have to do is ask God to forgive us and Jesus to rescue us. And then we can move from the dark into the light. Now, maybe you're like a little girl I met some years ago in Scotland. I drew this picture and she said, well, I'm not really bad. Okay, I'm not really so good. She said, I'll just be here in the middle. But children, here's the big truth of life. You see, God says you're either for me or against me. That means you can't stand in the middle. So you're in the darkness or you're in the light. There is nothing in between. Children, I hope that you will trust Jesus. I hope that you will learn that he is your true treasure. I hope you will hold on to him like David held on to him and let God take away your fear and make it possible for you to face people like Goliath with no fear, because God can handle any problem. Thank you, children. Trust Jesus.